Okay, it's Thursday, September 1st. Here is a SPY recap at the end of the day. Let's see what happened today, what it means going forward, and what are some of the, what if scenarios to continue to look for. So first of all, you can see today, for the first time in a while, we started lower, took out some targets, which I'll show you, and then reversed a little bit by the end of the day to give ourselves a little bit of a green reversal looking bar, which I'll get into it in a minute. If we hold the midpoint of this bar tomorrow and the overnight action and pre-market action kind of sets up in the right way above the halfway point of this bar, we could get a 2-up day, and we could be targeting, if you get that 2-up day, you're going to target that high of this bar right here. So in other words, let's say tomorrow is a big green day, then these 2 days would broaden out, this day. You broke the low of this day and the high of this day. So that's the target. Of course, if we get an up day tomorrow, and let's say it doesn't reach here, and by Monday next week it never reaches that target, that's going to be more exciting to get short on the next 2 down day where you get a new low. So keep all that in mind. But for now, you have this reversal bar. Again, you can see these blue lines represented the pre-market, the range in the pre-market high and low, and we started a little bit lower here, and then I'll show you why we took out a target, and at that point couldn't go much lower, and eventually reversed to the upside. So if we look at the targets on the weekly chart here, what it was we were coming down as discussed, and right out of the gates, the market gap below as we were coming down, it was yesterday, we had 2 targets involved on the daily chart. There was this one here and this one. So right out of the gates, we were below this one. So now the final target was our weekly low, the next one, which is this target right here. And we just missed it, to tell you the truth. And a lot of times, that's actually kind of fine. Like, people see that and they kind of think it's support and they buy down there. And if you can't really rally, then, you eventually take it out. So, even though we didn't get it today, we have one more day in the week, and truthfully, one more day in the week, unless we really open below the midpoint, start lower, it looks like we're going to maybe rally up a little bit, so we're not going to reach that weekly target. Anyway, what that means, I guess I'll continue the what-if scenarios. If we do end up tomorrow, let's say moving up a little bit, this bar could be kind of a downward bar that hit 1 target and 2 targets and didn't hit the third, and then, you could have kind of well, I said that wrong. No, you hit on the daily, there were 3 targets. So you come down here with a 2-down week and you miss the next target. It ends up with a neutral week. Then you have to see going into next week, do you kind of start above the midpoint of that week and start up? Or do you start below the midweek and go down and then kind of work towards these targets? So that'll be into next week. And finally, just going to the monthly, let's just look at that, because, I've talked about many times now how this is the inside bar, fell to the upside on this in August. So in September, we will be heading down. But meanwhile, at the moment, you see the very first day of the month, given the open, we do have a green month. And that's why it's called the flip in strat terms, where, that's why it matters when things happen. I mean, now you're at the beginning of a new month, so you have to kind of now judge what's happening this month only relative to everything else. And at the moment, it's green. At the moment, the daily chart at least is green if you hold the midpoint of this bar, so we could be heading up. And the weekly chart, even we'll see how it closes tomorrow. It's red at the moment, so it's not full continuity to the upside, but we have a little short-term potential to move up. So we'll get into that in a second. Especially, I'll show you, as we move up. See, the key here is, let's say we have a little bit of a rally here, like this weekend's neutral, then we go up a little bit into next week. You kind of look for these pullbacks, and downtrends to get excited to go short again. So, you're going to get a little green for a while here on the daily chart. You might get it on the monthly chart, but this is going to be the key to me. As we move up, either in the days or weeks ahead, do we hold the midpoint of this bar? As long as we hold the midpoint of that bar moving up, at some point I expect it to roll over. Then we'll keep an eye on what this opening price is, and we'll get the monthly bar red. Then once the monthly bar is red, we're really heading down there again. And we could also play any reversals up here below the halfway point of that bar. Should we start moving above the halfway point of that bar, which almost looks like the top of the body of this bar, let's move this line right down to there. As long as we kind of hold below there, then I'm looking for a reversal of downside. If at some point, and in the meantime, I'll play shorter term trades to the upside, as long as this is green and as long as the daily chart's green, and maybe even the weekly chart next week will turn green a little bit. So, you could still play play the upward move, but just know we have up to this level right here, midpoint of the month, prior month. As long as it somehow pauses in here, fails in here, or if it does fail in here, then get excited to go short again, and then all kinds of signals will develop to the short side, on all these charts. Okay, so let's just do a quick recap of the day, just the way it formed. Like I said, I mentioned in the opening thing, we're bias to the downside. Let's watch the pre-market levels, the high and low. We broke it to the downside, so you did have a start to the day down, but I said, it's getting to a point where we got to be nimble about these days. We have too many days in a row going down. So as it turns out, we came up. We tried. You can just sense we weren't getting that nice. We didn't get much of a move, grinded down, came up. We were having a hard time breaking the lows, but you still stick with it. And at some point, boom, it came up and took out the intraday high. And that's what changed the trend around. And that's where I started looking for a few long trades. I actually took a long trade at the beginning. I'll show you that as well. But, the market itself, you had to know that, initially there were a lot of stocks that did move lower and gave you a good opportunity for trades. But being nimble, as I said, just given the fact we might not get the momentum continuing, this is not surprising at all. So then in terms of the trading, what I actually did, it was interesting, on the short and I just picked Apple as a stock to go short. Kind of the same thing where we kind of held here, and as we moved down, I got short, and it ended up taking out, very similar to the SPY as a whole. It took out the intraday lows, and there was a nice trade in here, and then it reversed up on the day. I also, at the very beginning of the day, just knowing we might not get momentum to the downside, I decided to go long Walmart right here, because I had the up opening above the opening action. So it shows you, even though I'm going over the SPY recap, there's a lot of individual stocks doing their own thing. And given the fact I didn't know there could be much momentum to the downside, and some stocks were opening up strong, I decided to go long here. And this was a up, pause, up, a nice trade, in the morning on Walmart to the upside. So you had the upside and Apple on the downside working at the same time. Finally, as the market then broke to new highs later in the afternoon, I knew Nvidia, was kind of done going. It had its chance to make it. This was a big move down early. You could have picked this stock over Apple, but I probably should have, to be honest with you, because I've been trading it puts all week. But I don't know. For some reason, I went with Apple. And anyway, when it didn't make that second push down and then broke up, I saw an opportunity just for a little bit of, I was just kind of playing at that point with an hour to go in trading, and I bought some stock here, and it moved up like a point or so. So, there was a little trade there, and I even bought UNH, same kind of thing, where this stock really didn't move much lower, has some continuity the upside. After it went up and took out the intraday high, I bought that first pullback in here, and eventually I had to wait a little bit. It moved up a little bit. So these weren't big trades or anything. I was just, hoping maybe you'd get a very powerful short covering rally, but it didn't really happen that way. And, who knows what'll happen tomorrow exactly. But if anything, you got to kind of go back and look at the daily chart, play this green bar, look at the midpoint of that bar. We'll look at the pre-market, we'll adjust these areas, tomorrow morning and see where the pre-opening action is. And we'll look for a little follow through higher. The key on this follow through higher now, if we trade it, will be, this is going to be the target, short term to end the week. If we can't get up there, then that's going to, show you that this is a kind of a down week overall. It's going to end with closer probably, to the red, the bottom side of the bar by the end of the week, and then we can be heading lower next week. So a lot's going to depend on, what happens tomorrow, but we might get a little bit of upside action to trade. And just, go from there. But again, I keep this in mind. Until anything changes, I'm still playing the upside if it happens, but watching the midpoint of this bar. As long as that holds, I'm still bigger picture in September, thinking down to the bottom there. So even though we're green at the moment. So that's it. Overall, kind of exactly, at least what I expected. I mean, finally, I was expecting this type of day yesterday almost, but we went down pretty nicely. Today was more the down, and then the lack of momentum and just kind of moving up. So, there were, and that's why you had to, you could have taken a lot of quick profits on the downside with certain stocks, but they didn't really, most of them didn't follow through in reverse. So pretty, it ended the way I actually thought it would. And now, we'll just kind of play it very short term from here, looking at intraday structure, how price opens, the overnight action, and kind of the midpoints of each bar, that forms, and kind of see what if we get a little pullback in this downtrend, let's see where it goes, how strong it gets. And, still kind of keep an overall downward bias, even if we do make some, buy trades in the days ahead.